Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is April the 17th, 2020. Strong hand, golden age of the 2020s. Having hype. Oh, we'll talk about that. In motion. Okay, value your wealth in Bitcoin. I'm offended by selling. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. Personal responsibility is the new counterculture. We're going to talk about that. Hello, my elite friends. I got you the best freaking guest in the space again here on the This Week in Bitcoin show. We're here every Friday. David Bennett, Brekkie von Bitcoin, and Stephan Livera. They are all linked to below. Let us start the show because it has been an exciting week in Bitcoin and beyond Bitcoin. One thing that I noticed and that we were talking about off air is that everyone's talking stablecoins and the dollar. Seems like a lot of people want to hold stablecoins these days that are equivalent to the dollar. Yet Donald Trump is printing up all sorts of dollars, giving them out to everyone. We're getting $1,200 checks in America. They might even send a $1,200 check to Stephan Livera in Australia. So let me start with Stephan Livera, since you're in Australia and you might not be getting a $1,200 check from Donald Trump. What is up with the stablecoin craze, and why are people valuing their wealth in dollars these days?
It is perhaps some quasi crypto dollarization happening where, maybe there are people around the world who have an even worse, fiat coin than the USD, and they would rather hold some USD instead. Or maybe they're trying to use it to sort of get around these little currency or capital controls in their own country. And so some of this may be a little bit of transactional demand happening in kind of the stablecoin world, just because they're not ready to start denominating in Bitcoin like those of us who are more like Bitcoin centric, let's say. In the end, I think it does just push people a little bit more towards having it easier, because once you're already in a stablecoin, moving into Bitcoin is not that hard. So that's an angle too. But I think longer term, it's just, we see it more, at least the way I'm thinking about it, is more like, well, Bitcoin is just the harder money. It's just going to longer term win out. And that is what we'll see, especially like as halvings play out.
How big do you see the stablecoin space getting, though? I mean, Tether, in terms of its market cap, is going to eclipse Ripple soon. It looks like. I mean, it seems like more and more people are getting excited about these stablecoins. Which, I mean, it's not my thing at all. But I mean, how big do you think this is going to get?
Yeah, I don't really have a good answer, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, they could get a lot bigger for all I know. I mean, the market for dollars is a lot bigger than the market for Bitcoin right now. Obviously, Bitcoin is this tiny, tiny thing in the global scale, but we're all just super bullish on it because we see the properties of it. And I think if stablecoins function as a bit of a gateway drug for people, so be it. Obviously, I don't mess with stablecoins myself, but yeah, it may just end up being, it's what gets people started on their journey of coming into Bitcoin. That's my take.
Yeah, I don't mess with them either. Pound that like button, people. Well, the stablecoin that we're most familiar with, Tether, it represents the United States dollar. What's your take on the United States dollar these days?
For me, I think Raoul Pal had a good thesis on it. Basically, it was that other countries around the world, there's going to be people who still want US dollar, right? And so he's kind of like short-term bullish on the US dollar relative to other fiat monies. So that kind of made a bit of sense. That made a bit of sense to me. But I'm not like some big macro thinker guy, so I don't pretend to know what the deal is there. I see it just like a function of time, and we just kind of those of us who are who understand that Bitcoin has a certain scarcity and a certain qualities to it that can't be replicated, it's just going to win out longer term.
All right, well, let's go. Oh, David Bennett, you're a macro guy. What's your take on the stable coins and the dollar? And since a lot of people have been talking about them this week.
Yeah, I'm a little lax on that right now. My entire week has basically been
Yeah.
Who's Taika Waititi?
All right,
All right, we're
David,
back.
you were in the middle of something there.
We're back. Yeah, the investment in stablecoins or this irrational exuberance around stablecoins. I don't get it. I'm not a stablecoin guy because the only reason that you have stablecoins at this point is because you're dipping in and out between fiats and cryptocurrencies in some kind of weird like quasi, sort of like it's like a mix between the two worlds. And I think somehow or another that it's an edge effect. The edge of cryptocurrencies meeting up with the edge of the fiat and the legacy financial system is causing some kind of like, I don't know, like a nice soft looking bed that you would like to go lay into because you just don't know any damn better. And I think, honestly, I think that's what's going on is that people are like, they know something's wrong with legacy fiat. They hear all this stuff about cryptocurrency. And yet the bridge in the middle is this stable coin. Oh, this tether equals $1 and this thing equals something else. And I think that that's where the exuberance is coming from, but I don't think it ends well. I don't.
David, I got to say, man, I have not heard anyone else say this. This is great stuff. It is a mass delusion. Some people just want to get into it for the heck of getting into it because other people were getting into it. I mean, there's some people that obviously use it for trading, but I think you're onto something here. I think it's some weird psychological thing too that's pumping up. Now there are plenty of logical reasons too, but I think there are some people that are just buying it to buy it just for illogical reasons.
I'll take another side of this real quick.
Brekkie, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I got something. So I don't, caveat, stable coins are not hard sound money, and I don't really use them very often. Actually, I've never used a stable coin. But I imagine that there are some people who aren't able to get banked and who are using stable coins as the way that they would normally hold dollars anyway. Like I got a letter from my bank today about something just telling me about like my account info. And it's like, you can withdraw so and so, 6 times this month or whatever it is. And being a Bitcoiner and looking at that now, I'm just like, what? You're telling me what I can do with my money? Like I was going to use a curse word. Screw you, like that's how I felt. And so I think stable coins they could play a role for some people where it's a digital version of fiat that isn't controlled by a government, so they can't necessarily be told what to do all the time. When they're interacting with the fiat world, the real fiat world, sure, but I don't know. I think that maybe that's a use case that why some people might be using them.
No, I know, and that is, and it's just this week we've definitely heard a lot about it, and we also heard that the Libra, Facebook Libra, they've given in to the government. They're not going to be a basket of coins anymore. They're going to be a stable coin depending on what country they're in. It's not going to be permissionless. I mean, this is not a shock to me at all. Brekkie, do you have any thoughts on Libra?
I try not to. I try not to have any thoughts on Libra whatsoever. It's been said before, I do think it might be a good way to get people into Bitcoin. At the end of the day, everything you described, there's nothing new about it. There's nothing really revolutionary except for the fact that it'll be plugged into the Facebook ecosystem. So it has that massive reach. But I don't know. It was the first time we've heard about it in months, and I think it'll be many months before we hear about it again. And who knows if it'll actually even now, if it'll go anywhere and gain popularity.
Okay, so it was interesting to hear something official about it again. And I also wonder with you, when will be the next time we hear about it? Are they going to is there going to be some Libra momentum again? Who knows? Do you have thoughts on Libra down in Australia, Stephan?
Not really, to be honest. I think it's just one of those things where they're just going to have to keep playing that game of trying to appease the regulator, appease the government, say, yeah, we'll give you whatever you want, whatever surveillance you want, whatever control you need to kind of get them on board. And by the time that's all said and done, it'll have very little similarity, if at all, to Bitcoin. But yeah, I think the way to see it is it's just another way for people to get another stepping stone into Bitcoin and have some understanding on that. Because the way people talk about these things, it's always Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies, right? And so Bitcoin is always like first and center in their minds because Bitcoin is the mind share, right? And so Facebook has an audience of billions of people, right? Active users. And so those are all people who will start to normalize this idea of, digital money. Oh, okay. And then once you're already into digital money, even if it obviously is permissioned, you're only one step away from starting to get into Bitcoin. And it's just like even a small portion of those 2 billion active users coming in to Bitcoin would be massive in terms of adoption and so on. Now, obviously, it's a journey, and we don't necessarily want complete, normie types. We want people who are going to take, self-custody and do all those good things. But it's a funnel, and we're going to be able to get some of those people down that journey of self-custody.
All right. Yeah, we're going to talk about that self-custody in a second, actually. David Bennett, any thoughts on Libra?
Yeah, after what Brekkie and Stephan was saying, I think the only thing that I can say about it at this point is, well, education is more key than ever, and it's probably going to become more and more important as we go on. Education about how Bitcoin works, what it is, why it even exists, is going to be really, really important. It always has been, but it's going to be even more important now, because if we do have a swath of people that are going to enter through a different door, then that door should have a greeter that says, "Welcome to stablecoins. By the way, have you heard about Bitcoin?" Because sadly, the masses of the people that are coming in, they don't know what we know. They haven't seen all the chicanery behind the scenes. They're thinking this is all, it's fresh and pure as the driven snow and all that crap. Well, we know different. And we know these people, the leaders of Tether, there are leaders of these stable coins, and leaders have a tendency to have addresses. And they also have a tendency to have mailboxes, which get subpoenas put in them. And that kind of thing is not good. So it's like, with Stephen's show or Stephan's show, people like, Marty and Matt Odell, those guys, the education on being able to convert the masses coming through the stablecoin door into Bitcoin is going to be more important than ever, because otherwise they're just going to be stuck in the stablecoinville, and God only knows what happens with stablecoins. I mean,
you make a very good. It's a lot of exchanges. Control these stable coins. They go through the Coinbase door. They go through the Gemini door. The Tether, if they find out about Tether, I think they're going to be a little bit more deeper down the rabbit hole.
So how do we feel about Tether on Liquid?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's just one of those things where, again, it's kind of like another door. It's like, it's like a better door for them to come through, because if they're kind of in like that Liquid kind of ecosystem, it's kind of part of the Blockstream kind of ecosystem, and then they might be on Blockstream Green, and then they might have a Bitcoin wallet as well. So that's another angle too, right? Obviously, Liquid has its trade-offs, right? It is, you can have your peg out denied as well, so that's kind of a thing you have to worry about too. But I think it's a net good thing that that's coming to Liquid, and I think during this coming run we're going to see a lot more use of Liquid. At least that's my speculation. I think we will see more use of it, at least for the big players, like between exchanges and things. So yeah, and look, ultimately, even if you kind of zoom out, people will look at the price chart, right? And they will look at the price chart of the stablecoin versus Bitcoin, and it will eventually become very clear to them, oh wow, they're printing, because obviously all the printing going on, it's just going to necessitate that stablecoin is going down versus Bitcoin, and that is the thing that will twig the curiosity of the more normie-minded person to get into Bitcoin as well.
All right, Brekkie, you brought it up. What are your thoughts on that, on Tether in that regard?
Basically, if you're going to use these things that, use at your own risk. Like, I would rather them be tied to the security of Bitcoin at the end of the day. So, people are going to do what they're going to do, and I think they should be allowed to do whatever they want to do. So, it's a net, like Stephan said, it's a net positive. More good than harm.
Did you have any thoughts on? I don't know. I didn't prep you for this, so I don't know if you even read it. But there was an article about there's more value on the Ethereum blockchain than on the Bitcoin blockchain because of all the stable coins moving on the Ethereum blockchain. I mean, to me, it's not a big deal. But did anyone have any?
Wait, is this the Voorhees thing that popped up on Twitter today?
It was yesterday, but he might have retweeted it today. I don't know.
If we're talking about the same thing, I think he was actually wrong, and the metrics he was using weren't correct. Or he was talking about liquidity, so maybe this is different. I mean, here's the thing. The other thing is, like, there may be more value on paper, but like, if you can't sell it without tanking a market, then does it really matter? I don't know. Like,
and again, the value was a lot of it was in stable coins that are based on ERC20 tokens on Ethereum. I didn't actually plan to get into it today, but I was just reminded of it. Well, let's speaking of Ethereum a little bit here. The Grayscale people, Barry Silbert with his you can invest in the GBTC fund, you can invest in all of these funds. They had a huge quarter, $500 million that they claim from, a lot of it was from institutions pouring into their Grayscale funds. And the most popular one obviously was the Bitcoin one, and then the second most was Ethereum, and then the other ones weren't very popular at all. But it ends up that Barry Silbert, that the Grayscale controls 1.7% of the Bitcoin supply now. What do you think about that, David Bennett? That one group has that much Bitcoin?
I don't know. I mean, I've had to live with Coinbase owning as much as that they've owned for months now, and I've kind of gotten numb to the fact that I don't know what these guys are going to do. I mean, the only thing that at this point, the only thing that would kind of mess things up is if they just market sold everything that they had and crashed the price, and then the question becomes, well, why would you do that? No. So the incentives aren't aligned. So I think that they're kind of in their own little jail. I don't want to say jail, but you know what I mean. They're unless somebody gets really looped and says, hey, let's just market sell all of our stuff, then we've got a problem. But the chances of any one of these guys doing that, no matter what we think about them, pretty slim. I got to say, I mean, it's like you're just going to kill the golden goose. And while people have done more stupid things than that before, it's not often. So I'll just end that by saying I don't like the fact that there's that much Bitcoin in either Coinbase or Grayscale. The thing with Grayscale is the users don't actually own anything. Of course, neither does Coinbase, because it's sort of like their wallet. But I don't know. It's a hard, like I said, it's a hard deal. The only thing that I fall back to is the fact that human nature, having a sense of greed, is probably going to not let them just do something stupid. I mean, as dumb as they can be. I've seen them be very, very dumb, but I don't know. It's not that I'm not worried. It's just that I ain't scared. Let's say that way.
All right. Let's go to the Minister of Nodes here, right? Is that your name, Stephan Livera?
We're making that a thing. It is now.
It is. Okay. What's your take? Is it bullish? I mean, that all these people are buying into this fund, and they must think Bitcoin's great, but they don't actually own their Bitcoin.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's quite a dilemma for those of us in Bitcoin, because we obviously all try to preach and teach about self-custody, and yet there are these large entities that are not basically those entities are the ones who control the Bitcoin. So it's kind of sometimes you take the good with the bad, right? Because there'll be some people who, for whatever reason, they're not competent enough yet. But I've had some success with teaching people, like once they've started down that pathway, then saying, okay, well, now it's time for you to go to the real thing. So sometimes it's like a stepping stone, and that might be a good thing. But obviously, there is the negative downside that potentially Grayscale could try to throw their weight around, and maybe that might impact the way the protocol upgrades happen and things like that. That's a possibility. I would say it's unlikely, though. I think we're getting to the point now where the messaging is getting better as well, right? So we've got companies and we've got people out there who are constantly pushing the self-custody angle, and they're getting taught. And also the exchanges are going down here and there, right? Like you'll see an exchange go down, and then people start thinking, oh, whoa, actually, yeah, I do need to learn how to self-custody. So that's an interesting angle as well. I have had some, funnily enough, I've had some clients of like Ministry of Nodes where, yeah, they have let's say some KYC thing came in on the exchange, and now they started to actually, that put the fear into them of, oh, whoa, actually, yeah, these Bitcoins could be denied me. My withdrawal could be denied from me. So it's time for me to start learning about self-custody. And so take the good with the bad.
Scared straight.
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah, go on.
Brett, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You got a little click. It cut you off there. You something else to say, Stephan? Sorry.
Oh, no, that was it. Yeah, I was just basically saying you take the good with the bad there.
Okay. Brekkie, your thoughts on Grayscale?
Well, it's been said before, but I think Bitcoin truly is different things to different people, and it can be multiple things at different times to different people. You know, like when I first bought some Bitcoin, it was a number go up thing. I was like, oh shit, I better catch this wave, and then then we dumped. And for a lot of I would imagine for a lot of the people who are buying into Grayscale, it's purely an investment. You know, they're not looking at it as a way to opt out, excuse me, to opt out of government money. And maybe at some point they will, the same way I did, and it will become both a long-term HODL investment and, you know, a tool of freedom and empowerment. And I think that's just up to the individuals. And, you know, it's not really, we can encourage people and we can teach them and try to get them to understand why we believe X, Y, or Z about Bitcoin. But, you know, it's not on us to force anyone's hand. So, you know, some of the things that Stephan was saying, like, you know, worrying about like undue influence over the network and development, those are like where my real concern would be. If some fat cat, you know, living in Manhattan wants to, you know, invest a lot of money into Grayscale, I don't care. Good for him, you know? And if the day does come where, you know, the people at Grayscale say, oh, we're not going to give you your Bitcoin, well, you know, they'll learn that hard lesson the hard way, unfortunately. But so I don't know, you know, maybe we can educate them ahead of time. We can do our best, but at the end of the day, is what it is.
All right. Well, I think that Bitcoin's so great, there are people willing to pour millions of dollars into something that is kind of Bitcoin. That's a good sign. All right.
That sounds like a good name for a new token on Ethereum. Kind of Bitcoin. Something like that.
Introducing Brekkie's new ICO.
Kind of Bitcoin. Pound that like button. Well, we want the real thing here. Okay, we understand what the real thing is, and coming up on May the 12th, we're going to see the real thing cut in half. The halving is coming up in 24 days. All right. So the news cycle has been dominated by, we'll talk about what it's been dominated by in a few minutes. But so there hasn't been much halving hype as last time. But who knows what might happen in the next 3 weeks here. So I've got you here, Brekkie. I haven't heard your take on the halving. What do you think's going on?
The halving.
Are you excited?
You know what? I'll be honest with you, and frankly, I blame Stephan Livera for this. I really do. My outlook is so long term that I don't care.
Heck yeah, I love that.
You know, like I'm not going to sell after the halving. You know, maybe I'll buy more if it goes down, but like, you know, it doesn't matter. It does matter, and it doesn't at the same time. So. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens given the current market environment, though. You know, Bitcoin has never been in such a market before. Not really. So yeah, we'll see.
No, it definitely hasn't. Nothing's been in such a market before, where every government becomes a fascist regime. No, this is news. This is definitely different. Stephan, you're having thoughts.
My halving take. Yeah. So look,
The same as me. Has to be different.
Look, man. For me, I guess, kind of first level thinking, I would think, like I did an interview with Matt D'Souza from Blockware Mining. And in that interview, we spoke a little bit about his mining analysis, right? Because he's connected in with the miners, and like he knows really like what are their costs, what are they doing, right? Because that's obviously one of the big impacts. And so his thought was that basically it cleanses out the inefficient miners, and so it will take some time for that miner capitulation story to play out. Now, obviously, it's not all miners, because it's more like there are different levels of miners. There's some miners who are mining at a certain cost price. At a certain electricity cost price, and then based on that, the equipment and the mining stuff sort of flows around just like water flows down the mountain, right? So the way he explained it was, it might take some time for those inefficient miners to get wiped out, basically. So they will start selling down their treasury of Bitcoins that they've been holding. And so the way I'm seeing it is, we might see the halving happen, and then we might see a slight dip happen as those miners get washed out, and then potentially towards the end of the year, that's when we start to see the rise happen. And my take is the real kind of proper bull run starts next year, early next year. So that's my guess, again, based on having those discussions with people closer to the mining world. But there is another thesis as well. One thesis could also be that, look, some of these miners have leveraged up because there's been all this mining halving hype, and it's actually going to dip further than we think it will, and etc. But I think for me, in terms of base case, I'm expecting a slight dip in the price following the halving for like a little bit, and then slow rise through the rest of the year, and then next year is the real crazy bull run. That's my guess.
That would be like the last time around. Supply and demand, baby. All right, David Bennett, you're having thoughts.
Having thoughts or halving thoughts?
Having for David. Having for David.
Okay. It's priced in. No, I don't know. I don't know. I keep thinking about like what Stephan said, that the cleansing of the inefficient miners, that's going to happen. That's not something to be taken lightly. There's going to be a whole lot of people that are going to be wiped out. They're just not going to be able to operate because of two things: their equipment load, what kind of equipment they're running, and what kind of electricity rates that they're paying. What's interesting is that as those miners sell off their equipment or junk it, and somebody else takes it and tries to sell off like the old S9s and whatnot like that, there are going to be buyers out there because they're going to figure out how they can get a hold of like damn near, next to nothing rates on electricity. And I was listening to last time I was listening to Marty Bent's episode. He was talking to the people that he works for, Great American Mining. And the people that they were also talking, I think like there was another podcast I was listening to where they were talking to Steve Barber. And between the two of them, it was pretty much the same deal, is that these guys are not buying like the top of the line stuff. They're running S9s, and they can do that because the energy cost that they're able to get from stranded gas is, well, next to nothing. They have capital expenditures because they have to buy the miners, they have to get the generators, they have to do all that kind of stuff. But they can go out. That's what Bitcoin enables, is that they can go out and they can grab this energy and pipe it into Bitcoin and do all this wonderful stuff. So when the halving happens, I guess there might be a price dip. I kind of don't care, because I've been through one of these before. I heard the same crap in 2016 or leading up to 2016 that I'm hearing now. And when I was hearing the same stuff in 2016, I was a brand new Bitcoiner, right? I had end of the summer of 2015 was when I got in. And the first thing I started hearing about was mining death spiral. Oh my God, we're all gonna die. You bought into it. Was the whole thing. And what happened? It was just flat. It was flat from a little bit before the halving. The price didn't really change all that much through the halving. It wavered, but basically kind of went sideways. And then we get into the 2017 run. And you know what happened? Okay, so it is going to shake everything out. And a whole bunch of old mining equipment is going to be sold for pennies on a pound to people like Steve Barber, who are going to put them in shipping containers and drop them on an oil pad somewhere in frickin' Kentucky and get free natural gas. And he'll be able to actually run, in my opinion, he'll be actually able to run these miners against the brand new miners because he's got next to nothing in operational expenditures.
I'm really happy you brought up Steve Barber and Marty Bent, the whole talk about this using excess gas from oil mining to power these Bitcoin mining. Is this the future? Marty Bent said, like, in 5 years, like every oil company is going to be doing this. David, since you're talking about this, you clearly know about this. What's your take?
Well, my dad was an independent oil producer in Midland, Texas. That's where I grew up, was in the middle of the Permian Basin, which is the largest United States oil patch that there is. And it still is the largest one. It's never been the smallest one. So I kind of grew up on I've got a pit somewhere around here. I got a picture of myself working the brake on top of an oil field drill, exploration rig when I was like 8, wearing a Western utility hard hat and everything. So I grew up in the patch, and one of the first things that I remember is like burned in it's no pun intended. It's burned into my memory. I went out with my dad on one of these fields, but it was unlike any field that I had ever seen. It was just this weird looking thing coming out of the ground. There was a guy operating a lever, and there were like pipes laying like horizontal on the ground, like a whole bunch of them. And he pulled the lever, and this huge, I'm talking like half of a football field worth of pipes just lit up in gas. I was like, what? I'm like 8. Like, Dad, what's going on? He's like,
he's flames? Flames lighting up?
Yeah, he's flaring gas. And this was the old flare style back when I was like, like I said, like around 8 or 10 years old or something like that. Now the flare stacks have become like much more, I don't know, let's just say more expensive is what they've become.
Safer.
Yeah. And, but it was the most amazing thing in the world. It's like watching a dragon just breathe fire. And that was happening all the way back then. And there has never been a solution. There has never been a good, viable solution for capturing natural gas off of these things. And the natural gas price is so suppressed, it's down so low that there's nobody in their right mind would do capital expenditure to build the pipeline to connect all these wells, because you're talking about miles between these things. In some cases, they're like, oil wells will be right next door. But generally speaking, you're talking about thousands of square miles that you'd have to actually connect. And I can't even do the math on the linear feet that you'd have to lay to be able to capture all the natural gas. The only way that you can do this is to turn the natural gas into Bitcoin, and therefore turn the natural gas pipeline into either a satellite signal or a telephone line, which is much cheaper to build on a CapEx standpoint than anything else. You can just, at the wellhead, you can turn the energy into Bitcoin. And because these guys in many states, especially the states that have really bad environmental pressures on them to do such things, these are the guys that will give you the gas for free. And if you're getting that amount of energy for free, and you can generate into the sub megawatts to the megawatt range, you're going to be able to compete with older equipment. And then in the next halving, when the S19s and S17s are like the S9s that we have today, then it's just going to be the same story. So as the miners, as the inefficient miners that don't know how to operate their business or have been put in situations that they can't operate their business any longer because of energy charges, then as they liquidate their stocks, is going to be people like Steve Barber that pick up those stocks for pennies on the pound, throw them in a container, and drop them on an oil pad, and boom. And it's going to be one of the things that stabilizes the oil industry, because last I saw, you're looking at $18 a barrel for West Texas Intermediate crude. That was actually today. When we came into this, coming into this year, we were at 54, and halfway through last year, we were at 75. We were at 18. These guys are going to be chopping their stuff like staff. How can we'll shut in these wells? We'll do this. We'll do that. Get anything that they can do to continue to operate throughout this thing. This is a lifeline. It's not the lifeline, but it's a lifeline that at $18 a barrel, considering how this industry has been run over the last 10 years, they're going to be looking for anything. And they don't care. I mean, like if you've ever been out to an oil field, it's not like next to the rig or the wellhead is some kind of like paradise that they don't want you to throw like your own pad down. It's caliche. It's crap. I mean, it's like there's nothing there. So it's a why not situation. You're going to end up with a continual stream of old equipment because your gas price or your energy prices are always going to be low. You're probably going to be able to do okay as a miner into the future post-halving. That's where I'm ranting now.
No, dude. I think this is awesome insight into the whole oil Bitcoin connection here. I didn't know you were such an expert in these matters and had grown up on the oil fields of Midland, Texas. Wow, dude, pound that like button. I love this. I'm learning all sorts of stuff. So yeah, you're on Marty Bent's side of the argument here. 5 years, it's going to be big. It's going to be big for the oil people.
I believe so. I do.
Going to save their butts. Stephan, do you have anything to add to that? Any questions about that? That was awesome. Awesome info there.
Yeah, no, that was great. I think that's the thesis for how a lot of this plays out, and I agree as well. I've listened to those episodes. I think we will see more mining come to America, so that'll be a really cool dynamic to watch play out. I don't really have anything to add really on that point.
Yeah. We got he's definitely the expert there. Brekkie, your any thoughts on the oil and Bitcoin connection?
You know, that's a really nasty question. Okay. All right. Okay. Bitcoin. That's a horrible Trump impression. Shit. Bitcoin is a national security issue for America. All right. Okay. We're going to mine all the Bitcoins. We're going to have all of them. They're going to be great. They're going to be the best Bitcoins. They're going to be better than your Bitcoins. Okay. Saudi Arabia, you better listen. I got nothing.
Pound that like
they won't all be mined in China.
China is going to be huge. We're going to build the biggest Bitcoin miners. S17s. We're going to do S20s, S21s.
We get the comedy hour here tonight.
Okay, guys.
It's Friday, you know.
It's Friday, baby. It's Friday. All right. Okay. So we talk about oil. Let's get into well, I'll start this one off with Stephan because it's Australia. Time to talk a little Australia and virus here. Australia could keep coronavirus restrictions for a year. Oh man, that doesn't sound very good. Here's another related thing. This is from Carnivore MD. I'm hearing more and more talk about preparedness for future pandemics, virtually none of which includes any meaningful consideration of metabolic and nutritional health of our population or the massive role this has played in our current pandemic. Time for a paradigm shift. Okay, yes. People need to take personal responsibility on so many levels, financially and health-wise. So give us your lowdown on what's going on down there in coronavirus land.
Mate, I've got a lot of thoughts on that, because I think society has completely disproportionately responded to this and responded in the wrong ways, right? Now, let me just hypothetical, right? Like, I'm a libertarian. I wouldn't actually do this, but hypothetically, imagine if I just said, let's have fat camps. All right. So if you're fat, we're going to take you away. We're going to put you on the carnivore diet, and we're going to make you lift weights 3 times a week. You can eat as much meat as you want, but no sugar and no seed oils and all that, and basically just eat meat. That intervention would probably save more lives than this, and at lower cost than this crazy lockdown, right? What's the biggest killer in the world? Heart disease. What is the biggest reason why so many people are highly susceptible to coronavirus? A very high proportion of them are people with diabetes, are people who are obese. And you've seen different doctors come out and say things like, hey, of the 23 patients I had who were hospitalized or who went to critical condition, 22 out of 23 of them were diabetic or pre-diabetic. So it kind of...
But have you tried a wheat thin before? Have you tried one? They're just freaking delicious. I'm sorry. Normally I'm on keto, but I'm on a break right now. Fucking wow.
So instead of people being able to go outside and get some sunlight and, eat well and put themselves in a position where they are far less susceptible to this virus and that their immune system is far stronger versus this virus, the world is locking people inside their houses. They're in less mental, having more mental issues. Some of my friends are kind of having like depression sort of symptoms and things because they're like, locked inside basically. And there are people who can't work. It's just ridiculous. So here in Australia, we've had this complete police. It's become a complete police state. You literally cannot leave your home unless you fit one of these, I think, 15 or 16 reasonable excuses, right? And so we've seen cases where some guy got done for eating a kebab on a park bench. We had another case where I think she was a 17-year-old girl, and with her mum, who obviously they live in the same house, and they were going driving. So again, windows down, they're going driving just to get the learner license, driving hours. They got done. It's like all these people getting done for ridiculous things. It's all becoming like this massive police and surveillance state. We've got like, Karen-topia, where Karen dobs in and narcs on people to the state, when we could have responded to this in a much more rational fashion. We could have, the world could have done something like, hey, protect the high-risk people, right? Like the old people and the immunocompromised people, and the young people go and keep working and, keep the gears turning where you can, obviously. Like, make sensible, decisions, right? Wear masks, wash your hands, do those kind of basic things, right? And to me, it's just been so incredibly destructive. And people are going to look back, a couple of years from now, they'll look back and realize, wow, those lockdowns were incredibly destructive. And they ushered in a whole new era of surveillance state, police state. It's just completely disproportionate.
Have you been surprised by some of the people's reaction, the Bitcoin supposed Bitcoin fans' reaction to this that are cheering on this police state? I mean, there's a lot that's been revealed.
Who's doing that? Maybe I haven't been paying attention to that, or I just.
We're not going to name names here. We're not going to name any names here. I don't want to name anyone on Twitter.
Was there what about the justification for it then? Don't talk in abstract. What were they saying?
Yeah, so some of them would say things like, okay, but we need a state to, restrict the movement of people, to try and restrict the virus. Or some people kind of come from that view of like, oh, well, you've got to like, you need to kind of do this initial lockdown because we don't know what's happening with it. Now, I think the better arguments are things like, hey, let's, maybe it was like, oh, do a short-term lockdown to build the capacity in the hospitals and things like that, right? But the thing for me is the narrative just keeps shifting, right? So at the start, we were sold these lockdowns on we need to protect the hospitals so that they don't get this massive peak load problem, right? Like just So, and then we'll get people dying who could have otherwise been saved, but because there was no hospital capacity, blah, 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 right? But then what we've seen, especially here in Australia, is more like we've not just flattened the curve, we've like massively dropped that curve. And now they're still talking about like, oh, but we still need to have all these restrictions and blah, blah, blah. And like, thankfully, we're not doing the New Zealand strategy, which is like they're trying to go for the full containment, which is ridiculous because as I understand it, that will leave their population more fragile because then if someone comes in from internationally, because you're not going to eradicate COVID globally. So if somebody comes in internationally, now you've got to start thinking about like stopping and quarantining at every single point rather than actually, what humans have done for thousands of years, which is more like the herd immunity idea. So.
I've got to say one thing. I just had a thought and it's sending me into spirals of laughter over here. So what you're basically saying is that New Zealand is now literally 100% a country of sheep. Is that true?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sad.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this can't go. I mean, but that quote that I read, there are Australians, speaking about sheep, they want this to go on for a year longer. Stephan, what's going to happen to the economy if this?
Yeah.
I don't think it's people will rebel, and I do hope in the United States, some of the states soon lead the way and inspire other countries. Not, I mean,
to protest it. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And like the thing here is, well, some of it's like Australia specific, but the rhetoric and the reasoning is like, oh, well, we can just kind of hibernate the economy and restart it. And it's like, no, people don't get this, right? So they think of it like, oh, I care about lives. What do you care about this 0.3% of the GDP? What it's like, and that's the straw man, right? Because really, it would be like if I were to say, oh, I care about plants, but not about sunlight and soil and water, the things that sustain the plants. It would be like these people who are saying, oh, I care about health, but not the economy. It's like, you need the economy. You need the things to be able to produce. And like, so from my perspective, I think people have been overly hysterical and overly scared when really we should have focused the efforts towards high-risk people, right? So they've been saying, oh my God, look at this like 30-year-old, whatever. But like, it's just the media blowing up these like outlier or small cases that are not representative. So that's my perspective on it. But what do you guys think?
Well, no, you also tied it into to Bitcoin beforehand when we were off.
Oh, that too. Yeah, for sure. Because I think that is the story as well. Because a lot of fiat food, right, has been basically subsidized. We've pushed people down this pathway of being really unhealthy, and so then they are now more susceptible to this virus, and it's kind of socializing the cost of the hospitals and the healthcare system and everything, because we're all stuck in this socialist system where, the fiat food kind of companies who produce all these really unhealthy foods have basically capitalized their profits and socialized the losses onto everybody else. And so that for me is why this whole kind of Bitcoin and fiat money connection, because it's like fiat money has funded the welfare state and funded all these big things that stop people from caring about their own health and their own quality of life. And so that's why it's like you're seeing a lot of the Bitcoin people who are into, keto, low carb and carnivore diets, because they care more about their own bodies and their own health for the long term. And so I think that is the sort of society that we're going to drive it towards. It'll take some time to get there, but that is the clear trend in my view.
Well, I don't know. I would hope people lean toward personal responsibility, but right now people are begging the government to solve all their problems. I mean, it is complete bootlicking of the government. Do something for the sake of doing something. They shouldn't do anything. Let's. You've seen what doing something is. Everyone's locked in their house now. That's their answer to do something. And some people like it. David, you haven't said anything for a while. Your thoughts on this?
I'm stuck on the food issue here. I was watching a documentary earlier today, and it was like something : how money dies or something like that. had great information. At the end, it turned into like I was like, oh God, I've watched an infomercial for buying gold. Peter Schiff was in there. And the way they were talking about gold, it was like, and we do it when we talk about Bitcoin too. And the legacy financial system does it when they talk about like dollars and yen and all that stuff. Like, you can't eat any of this. If push comes to shove, like if a solar flare happens and half the world loses all power and even Bitcoin's network is disrupted, we got bigger problems. We got way bigger problems, and nobody knows how to grow food. Not for themselves, not for their neighbors, not for anything. I know how to fill out a 1040 EZ form. I know how to waste my time talking to my freaking accountant. I know how to argue about technical analysis on stocks. I know how to do all this stuff, and none of it feeds me. None of it.
It's pronounced stonks, first of all.
I'm sorry.
That's
it doesn't matter if you can't grow your own food because seeds have been deemed non-essential and you can't grow them anyway. So I don't know what the problem is.
Yes, agreed, Brekkie. Agreed. But seriously, it's a system where I think about this a lot. The destruction of the family, this narrative that's been foisted upon us for God only knows how long. And that narrative includes stuff like, let the farmers do it for you. Let the bankers do it for you. Let your accountant do it for you. Let everybody else do everything for you that we used to all be able to do ourselves or didn't have to worry about it. Before 1913, I didn't have to worry about a 1040 EZ. Of course, I wasn't alive, but you get the point. We've been suckered into learning all this crap, how to do all this stuff that doesn't matter. And all this stuff that did matter, we lost it. And it's scary. And that's the thing that worries me the most about what happens going forward, because clearly we've kicked the can down the road yet one more time. And I really, truly believe that we've entered into a field of global legacy financial systems own halving. And let me explain what I mean. In 2008, we got this financial collapse. And then here we are in 2020, and we've got this thing, and the answer is the same. Pump a lot more money into just print it. Brr, money printer, go brr. I think that what's going to happen is that the time between 2008 and now, they've kicked the can down the road successfully. We're going to restart the economy. It's going to suck. There's going to be it's going to be a lot of pain, but they're going to restart it again. Take the time between 2008, 2020 and have that time. And that's going to be how long it takes for the next time. And then after that, have that again. And that's when the next crisis is going to come up, until we get to the point that the crises are just back to back to back to back to back. And I think that that's when the actual collapse happens. I don't think it's going to be a one-off deal. I think what ends up happening is that the old money printer go burr in, let's see, what is it? In like
2026. So you pick 2026, then 2029. You're talking about two more of these in this decade is what you did.
Right. And then they get closer and closer together, and it will be when they get closer and closer. This is what I think. Did I go to economics school? No. Am I as good as Peter Schiff? No. But it's a gut feeling, bro. All I can say is that I see this pattern forming, and I believe that the global legacy system is going through their own halvenings towards the final set of death throes. Now, what we do in between here and there is all up to us. Personally, I think learning how to grow food is a good deal. Because you grow food, you're basically printing your own money because it's money that you don't have to spend. And I got 6 chickens out in the backyard. I've never raised chickens before. Haven't killed a single one of them yet. And I find that going outside and watching them be chickens is actually kind of calming, and when they start producing eggs in like another 10 weeks, because they're slow starters, I think that they'll be healthier eggs than what I can get at the store. And honestly, it doesn't take all that much work. It's something that I don't know. I'm just saying, I think it's worth people learning how to do this. And guess what? The majority of the people will not learn how to do this.
Well, I think an even simpler thing, which Stephan alluded to, is get yourself healthy. Okay, so you don't have to rely on the medical system, which clearly is totally out of whack. I mean,
but see, that all boils down to food, the quality of the food that we eat. Because if we're going and like, I got a friend that says, I went to the store because I'm on this health kick, and then he shows me this jewel case full of some kind of weed or something like that. And he's like, I don't even know what this stuff is called, but I'm eating it because I want to get healthy. And I'm like, you clearly don't know the first thing about any of this. You're just reacting. And this is not healthy. The health comes from learning what the stuff is, i.e., this is why you want to learn how to grow stuff so that you know what to grow. And then you can fine tune that as to, I don't want to grow this because it doesn't do anything for me. And I want to grow more of that because there's more vitamins, minerals, that type of thing. Ranting is just that the food issue at this point is probably the most important issue that we got, but we're not really talking about it. And I'll just lay this out on the table right now for the end of it. The end of my rant is this: the average age of the farmer in the world is somewhere around between 57 and 60 years old.
Whoa.
I'm not lying. I'm not making it up. It's not hyperbole. I got sucked down the rabbit hole by another Australian, Stephan.
But what kind of farmers are they? They grow in one thing. They're growing soybeans and that's it.
Yep.
They're growing corn and that's it.
That's pretty, and that's the majority. That's the majority of the farmers in the world are growing, quote unquote, either staple or commodity crops, and they are 57 to 60 years old. So I don't even want to know what the numbers are about nutrition food. But Stephan, I wanted to tell you that the whole reason I ended up in Bitcoin was because of an Australian called Bill Mollison. Ever heard that name?
No, I don't know him.
He was from Tasmania and got famous in the 1960s, 1970s. He died a few years back, but him and David Holmgren, which was his grad student, was the progenitor of something called permaculture, which is basically permanent culture. A lot of people misattribute the word to being permanent agriculture, but it has everything to do with agriculture. It has everything to do with soil health. It has everything to do with water retention on the land, because in Australia, water is a thing. It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And these guys developed this system in the 70s called permaculture, and it's just now starting to get up. And like all of a sudden I got into that. Next thing I know, I started hearing about stuff like Austrian economics. And then I hear about this guy called Nassim Taleb. And then it was like literally a half step into Bitcoin from there. It was really weird. So when I came into Bitcoin, I was coming in with stuff like aquaponics, hydroponics, good soil health, permanent crops, not annual crops, and healthy food. And so by the time I got here, I was already bathed in that whole nutrition thing.
Good. We spread the word. That's an interesting story to got you into this. And I do wish that all the Bitcoin dudes out there, think about your health. Think about it. Brekkie, you haven't had an official say on this whole virus thing. What's your take?
My take on the virus?
Or on anything we've been talking about just now. We just had the miscellaneous part of the show, the beyond Bitcoin part of the show.
Beyond. All right, I'm gonna push back on some things. I'm gonna push back a little bit.
Oh no, I'm in trouble.
So I'm with you 100%. I think health-wise and food-wise and self-sufficiency-wise, we could do better by getting wiser on those things, right? But that being said, I think part of the reason why we're in trouble is because, if you look at it, I'm not an economics expert, and that's why Stephan is here. But specialization is actually a very good thing. True specialization is what has allowed human society to flourish and for us to reach these levels that have never been seen before. But the problem is that capitalism itself, or what we think is capitalism, is not capitalism. Without money being free, without borders being free, without trade truly being free, we don't actually get the benefits of specialization in the way that we think that we're already getting them. So while, yes, I think maybe now is the time to start raising chickens and to try to, work your way around a lot of these problems, if the system actually worked the way that it should work, you wouldn't have to know how to raise chickens, because the world would be free, trade would be free, you'd be able to get everything you need, and, life would be a lot better. But, we have these giant states, you can't see them, but the state is right there, right above the frame. They're right there, and telling us what to do. So now I'm depressed. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that to me? Well,
I wouldn't say that was pushback. I mean, you're just adding to the.
Agreed.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that was pushback. That was
about 25% of what I say is serious. There's you gotta take it with the jokes.
All right. Well, that I got you here, Brekkie. We'll move away from the miscellaneous part of the show right now and go back to pure Bitcoin. What's up with this Fold card? You know about this thing?
I do know about this thing. So I'm not officially a part of the team or anything like that, but I'm close with the team, and a friend and I worked together, and we helped make the announcement video for the Fold card. I believe as of now, it's only launching in the US. I'm not 100% sure on that, but basically it's the first sat stacking card. It's powered by Visa, so you can use it anywhere that Visa is accepted. You swipe and you get, I think, at least 1 to 2% sats back on everything with boosted rates. And Fold, if you've never heard of Fold before, basically they're in a really, really incredible company that allows you to earn sats back on purchases previously and still with gift cards. So you're stuck at home, it's quarantine, you're ordering everything on Amazon and waiting for the drone to deliver your packages. Go to Fold and look for an Amazon gift card because you can earn sats back on a lot of things. And so now they're basically just expanding their offering. And I could talk about this for hours, but I just think it's super exciting.
The specific question I had is they partnered with Visa. There's going to be a credit card. So when you use the credit card, you're going to get Bitcoin back on anything you buy. And then do you have complete access to that Bitcoin? Can you move that Bitcoin to a regular wallet anywhere? Or do you have to keep it on the card? Or what's the deal there?
So as of now, I believe it's almost like a hybrid credit debit card. You have to deposit fiat into your account and then you spend it like it's a debit card. Although I want to say I think credit is on the way. But yes, once you get the Bitcoin back, and you usually get it back instantly, at least when you're buying gift cards using Lightning, for example, then you withdraw it to whatever wallet you want. Might even be Betch32 capable. I'm not sure about that. But they're basically Bitcoiners through and through, and they want you to withdraw. And if you don't want to withdraw, you can actually use that Bitcoin to buy gift cards and other things like that. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do it. This was a few months ago, but was something really interesting was Will Reeves, the founder, was telling me that basically they were kind of surprised by the numbers of what people were doing with their Bitcoin. There was a large chunk of people who were withdrawing it, a lot of people who were spending it on gift cards, and a lot of those folks who were using it were actually new to Bitcoin. Like they were doing it purely to save money, and so I found that really exciting. So I'm a big proponent of these sats back programs wherever they are, and I think they're going to be a major way in for adoption for us. Just when you're in a world where like you can save money and you can stack sats and like earn hard currency for real, just by doing what you're already doing. It doesn't take a lot of thought to get somebody to use it. You don't have to explain Austrian economics to them. They can learn that later. All they need to know is that it makes sense financially, and why not do it? So,
do you guys, panel, do you have any thoughts on these sats back programs? I think it's great too.
Yeah, I mean it's an entry vector, right? But I guess it depends who you speak to, right? Because some people would say, "Oh, that's all permissioned, it's all KYC, blah blah blah." Like, look, I think there's like a good and a bad, and it's the same kind of thing. You got to take the good with the bad, and I think on net they're positive because they're getting new people in, and then we can kind of teach them more about self custody, and now start caring about your privacy and all these other things. So it's kind of like a in between position, So I think absolutely net positive. Let's do it. Let's get people into it, and there'll be a whole bunch of people who aren't ready to go read Austrian economics and ready to go and like figure out how to use all these things. And some things just need to be made easy for them. So
I still haven't opened this up yet, Stefan. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. I can't do it yet. I'm going to, but I haven't done it yet.
You're on quarantine, man. You got to do it.
I don't think quarantine's going to last that long, but we'll see.
Yeah, it may not last that long. It might not last long enough. But yeah, guys, look, sorry, I've actually got to head off because I've got another interview I've got to do soon. So, look, thanks for having me, and I'll leave you guys to it. But yeah, maybe just check out my site, stephanlivera.com and ministryofnerds.com.au for Bitcoin coaching if you need it. But yeah, with that, I'll leave you guys with it. Catch you guys soon.
All right. Thank you, Stephan, for your time. Good luck and good morning. It's Saturday there. All right. Thank you.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. We will continue here without Stephan. David, did you have any thoughts on the what we're just talking about? Ways you
sats adoption.
I really like Fold. I really do. And one of the although I will say that one of the things that I didn't like about Fold was the two-step dance of having to buy the gift card, and then do other stuff to be able to get my sats back. So this Visa card, I have been waiting for this for a year. Honestly, I've been I just want to swipe the card and get my sats.
Have you spun the wheel today? Should we spin the wheel?
I spun the wheel today, and I have like 4 hours left to get 1,000 sats back and on something that I purchased, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure out what to buy. I right after this, I got to order pizza. The kids are hungry. So, but I got to tell you, I'm really happy that Fold got into the fast track program on Visa. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be, like Stephan was saying, an entry vector of huge proportion. And this somehow or another, I keep thinking about how we first started this entire show with the talk on stablecoins, and how it's that edge effect between cryptocurrencies and getting into Bitcoin. And this is like sort of the fiat system rubbing up directly against Bitcoin with it just minusing the whole stablecoin nonsense, right? And this is one of the reasons why I really like Fold as a company. It's a good ethic, it's a good morality, it's like got really great people behind it. And they keep innovating. And I said this on I think I said this on my podcast on Monday, which is the last one that I did this week, but was that if I could get the leadership at Fold and Try Lolly to go in together to start a class on business development, I would buy that class. Mm-hmm. I would buy that class in a heartbeat. I would look at that class as probably just as worthwhile as the Xerox sales class. I don't know if you've ever heard about that, but the Xerox sales class is like world famous for building salespeople. Whether you're selling Xerox or bottles of beer, it doesn't matter apparently. But nobody has a business development class that I've seen that is like of that kind of noteworthiness. And both the guys at Fold and Trilolly, it's like every single time I bring up my freaking Twitter feed, it's like, we've added this vendor and we've added these vendors. And it's like, oh my God, what do you guys do? Just like pick up a phone and say, let's do it, bro. And the guy goes, yeah, okay, let's do it.
Well, so
I mean, that's what I'm saying is that the business development that's going on behind those two companies is so impressive that I want to take that class.
So what's interesting about that is on the one hand, you're right. They're using the playbook and they're using it masterfully. Like every move that they're just doing a great job. But what I find really cool about these two companies is they're actually in some cases showing how Bitcoin can really benefit these businesses and not just their users. So like companies, what I've talked to Alex from Lolly and Will from Fold, and what happens a lot of the time is like they might onboard someone and eventually like they'll get curious about Bitcoin and like ask like why, like what's the deal, like because normally like they don't really care as long as like those companies are getting more customers. Great, that's normally what they care about. But like Fold, for example, like when you pay with Lightning instead of paying with fiat, you're bypassing the Visa network. You're bypassing all the fees that are associated with the fiat system, and everybody saves money in that case. And so, with things like, I don't know if you've started using Lightning Strike yet, like Jack Mahler's thing yet.
I've got it. I haven't been able to play around with it, but I've got it. I've got Strike.
So for anyone who doesn't know what it is, Jack Mahler's amazing guy. You should look him up. Strike is basically a app, I think it's still in beta, that allows you to take fiat and immediately spend it in the form of Lightning Bitcoin, whichever way you want. So like in the context of using Fold, like you get a much higher sats back reward when you pay with Bitcoin. And I'm not an advocate for spending Bitcoin right now. I think it's a long-term hodl, blah, 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 blah. It's a store of value. But when you're taking your dollars and they get immediately converted to fiat immediately converted to Lightning, and you use that to pay an invoice and get your Fold card and you get your higher reward, there's no difference to your hodl stack, let's say, right? And so what's happening is we're using the Bitcoin rails to help people out, to help them benefit in ways that they couldn't if they were just using the fiat rails. So I don't know. I find that like just kind of really subversive and really amazing. And I'm just excited to see what's going to happen with Strike and all these other companies as well.
Well, since we're talking about other companies, you got to deal with Swan. What's up with Swan?
I do. I started working there as their creative director, and Swan is now my favorite way to buy Bitcoin. Basically, what our main focus is on dollar cost averaging. So within the 49 states minus New York, though we are working on getting a bit license, you can start with as little as $5 a month, and you can basically you set up a recurring plan and automatically debits your bank account, automatically buys Bitcoin. You don't have to think about when you're buying it. You just start accumulating. And we also have, if you want to, and we encourage you to do so, we have automatic recurring withdrawals to your personal Bitcoin wallet. So it's just a super, super easy way to get Bitcoin and start accumulating it. And is Brian Armstrong around? No? Okay, good. And our fee schedule is incredibly competitive, where I think if you're buying over $50 a month, the fees are 70% lower than Coinbase's if you prepay your fees for the year. So that's like, $20, $25 a fee, something like that. If it's over 100, it's still 50% less than Coinbase. We're not a shitcoin casino. We will be Bitcoin only forever. And we've got some great memes on Twitter. If you go into the GIFs and you search for Coinbase, you might just see some Swan Bitcoin memes pop up. But yeah, no, they're a great company with great people. Jan Pritzker is our CTO, who wrote Inventing Bitcoin, which is one of my favorite books. It's small and really encapsulates Bitcoin in like 100 pages. Corey Clipson is our CEO and other founder, who started Give Bitcoin, which is our other kind of sister product, basically where you can gift Bitcoin to people. And when you do that, it gets locked for a year. So we custody it with Prime Trust. But that's so that someone who's new to Bitcoin doesn't go out and sell it for Ripple or sell it for dollars or something else that we don't think is a good idea. And we also, in that year lockup, they get sent all sorts of educational materials on Bitcoin, so they can learn how to custody it. They can learn why Bitcoin's important, and hopefully by the time the time lock runs up, they're ready to be a full-on Bitcoiner. So yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, those guys have been on this show too, Jan and Corey. Great stuff. Offended by selling. Don't sell your Bitcoin for Ripple, of course not. Who the heck would do such a thing? All right, we did have, before we go, and before David gives his closing thoughts, we had a question here from Derek in the audience. He says, do you think exchanges will ever be treated as banks, i.e. direct deposits?
Yes.
Well, I think people are already using. Yeah, who said yes?
Me.
Yes.
Yes. I think that's exactly where they're going. I think that's where they want to go. I think that's what their business model has driven them to. I see them as like somebody who came up in a brand new world and is collapsing into the old world. Right. That's what I see.
People. All right. Any thoughts on that, Brekkie?
I mean, yeah, I would say people are already doing it, but I would also say don't do it. Get your coins off the exchange. It's not safe.
Yes.
That's the whole point of Bitcoin. Not the whole point, but it's one of the major points of Bitcoin that you get to control it. So don't cede that control to somebody else unless you have a good reason. If you want to earn interest on your Bitcoin because it matches your risk profile and you're putting your Bitcoin to work, fine, whatever. But you should also have Bitcoin that you control. So those are my thoughts.
All right. Yeah. And since we're at the end of the show, anything that got left out that you wanted to add, Brekkie?
Anything left out? Well, I also work for a company called Tantra Labs, so I'll give them a quick shill. We are on Twitter at Tantra_Labs. And if you are a Bitcoin holder, and as of now, an accredited investor, we offer some of I think the best returns on lending Bitcoin out there. Everything we do is automated algorithmic trading strategies. And so, they're basically designed to capture alpha, whether the markets are going up or going down. You can send me a DM, I'll send you info, but more news on that in the future. We'll have some cool, exciting updates for the rest of the folks out there.
Oh, wow. I'm already following Tantra Labs. I'll be dipped.
I'll remember we got all three of these dudes are linked to below. So their Twitter, and you can find out so much about them over Twitter. I encourage you to follow them. All right, David, you got the last word.
All right. Nassim Taleb says that cryptocurrencies are the solution to banks in Lebanon and elsewhere, increasingly limiting access to hard currency. That's a decrypt.co headline from April the 17th. That's sometime today. Actually, it was this morning. So Nassim is apparently just I think he's all in at that point. That's good news. The other thing that I wanted to mention was something that you actually had in your stack, this Brian Armstrong tweet. I know.
Who, me?
No, me. I know what it is. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's that the percent of buys and deposits are exactly the same size as the $1,200 stimulus check. There's a graph here, I guess, of their what's going on over there at Coinbase, and there's this huge spike right around the time that the stimulus checks got released, and apparently a whole bunch of people just said, you know what? I'm just going to convert this into something I can trust, even though it's Coinbase. I know. I get it. I don't like them either, but it is what it is, right?
It is. There are plenty of people. They knew that 1,200 was coming to them, and they went immediately to Coinbase and made orders for $1,200 worth of Bitcoin or deposited $1,200. And most of them probably didn't even get their 1,200 yet. But
I hope it was Bitcoin and not Cripple. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, well, one would assume that if they were that wise with their 1,200, it would be Bitcoin. All right, dudes. Well, very good point. We had a classic show today. Best guest in the freight space. Thank you, guys. Remember, this show is every single Friday. Disruptmeister.com. No matter where I am on YouTube, you'll be able to find me there. TechBalt on Twitter, so follow me there. Sportsmeister.com. If you're listening to this audio, you can find me. It's no matter what happens, conviction. You're going to get a new show here every day. So thank you. We'll be back Saturday night Everybody, Shabbat Shalom. I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. And have a great weekend. And again, thanks a lot, guests. Pound that freaking like button.